Resources.
Okay, can you hear me? All right, so before we start, I want to explain a little bit the title of this talk because I used extreme programming thing. So what does it mean? If we consider sport and extreme flavor of sport, we know that extreme flavor is more intense. We have to push ourselves, our skills, everything to the limit to eventually achieve something big. And pretty the same with programming. We have to push our skills, our language, framework, everything to achieve something big, eventually. So to do this, we basically need to know two things. We have to gain experience and knowledge. And experience is easier to gain. We gain it every day at work. So almost every place on the planet has this three-step leveling system, which looks like a Pokemon game, right? So we start like a cute, small Pokemon, junior Pokemon. After a few years, you're that big, powerful Pokemon. You can do a lot of things. And there is always a Pikachu, that young guy who knows everything for some reasons. And gaining knowledge is a bit harder because at work you may do the same things over and over, sprint by sprint, and not learning anything. And what we do in this case, we are looking for external resources like Medium articles, and we find something like this: 11 easy steps to follow to become an Angular Pro developer. Anyone can do this, right? Show it to your grandma. 2 weeks later, Angular Pro developer, right? It's not working. It's not what we are looking for. So today I will focus on the knowledge gaining thing, how to gain it. I will show you a few links you can follow and so on to learn. So how to become an extreme Angular programmer in half an hour. My name is Kamil Gałek. I work for Appfire as a front-end developer. I do a big picture app. It's really cool Angular app. You can learn a lot from it. It's a really big app. So that's how I know a few of the things that I'm going to show you. I'm the author of medicalangular.dev. You can find my articles here and on Medium because we all repost it to Medium. And I really like to cook, and I have a GitHub repository for recipes because this is what we do as developers. If you have something interesting, you know what to do with pull requests, right? All right, this presentation will be only half an hour, but I will try to speak a little bit faster. I know it's late. We all want to go to grab some beer, hang out with people, share experiences. So maximum half an hour. And I'll be here today for a few minutes more, and tomorrow whole day. So if you have any questions, I will try to answer them. My slides will contain a lot of QR codes, and each QR code will lead you to external resources, articles, videos, everything that I think is useful. I verified. I can say, okay, it's good. It says good things. And the first QR code will lead you to my GitHub repository with these slides. So if you take a photo of this one QR code, you have everything that I'm going to show you. And what's more, you will get all of the updates of my presentation. So I will give you like 10 more seconds to take a photo of it, and I will start. So is it even possible to become an extreme Angular developer in half an hour? And because you are here, I know that you know the answer. It is completely not possible. You know that because you are here. You know it's not possible. More realistically, you can become one in 3 to 5 years. It really depends on your background, but I cannot name my talk like this. No one would come. So I beg you, don't go out, okay? I swear 30 minutes is a really good time to start, and today we will start with something called ng-zones in Angular. If you don't know what ng-zones is, it's that really cool automatic mechanism in Angular which will trigger a change detection cycle when something is happening in your app. To simplify it, it will refresh the HTML if you change something. Simple, right? And it works like that. So if you have this blue component and there's a button, you click on that button, it will propagate event click to the top, to the root component, it will be catched by ngZone. ngZone has a field called onMicroTaskEmpty, which is a stream. And Angular is subscribing to this stream in application_ref class, and it is executing a tick method. And tick will do the whole cycle of change detection. So it will check the whole tree and render what needs to be rendered. And here's the proof. So what you see right now is a piece of Angular source. We are looking at application_ref class, constructor, ngZone, onMicroTaskEmpty, subscribe. This is the piece of code that is quite easy and does all that magic, right? So what's the problem? It looks nice. It is automatic. You don't have to care. It works. Let's imagine that when you click on that button, you want to highlight something. You just want to add a CSS class, right? Simple. So to do this in Angular, you have to click on that button. Event has to be provided, catch by ngZone, change detection cycle has to be triggered. The whole tree has to be checked just to add a CSS class. It's a lot of things to execute to do a simple thing. So maybe it would be better just to add a CSS class. That's all, right? So how to deal with it? There are a few methods. You can provide ngZone. There is run outside Angular method. So everything that you execute there will not trigger change detection cycle. This is the easiest method of doing thing. What I like to do is to provide no-op ngZone as soon as it is possible. It's still possible when you have a big app or complicated app. It will be painful. It's worth it, but it's complicated. It's not going to work at start. So if you start with no-op, you're safe. Everything will be optimized. If you have to introduce it, it will be painful. So what's the difference between no-op and ngZone? The difference is simple. If you imagine ngZone as a pipe, from one side, you have every async API of browser, monkey patched, events, promises, interval timeouts. All of these events, all of these actions will be translated to a value on stream onMicroTaskEmpty, and it will trigger a change detection cycle. If you provide no-op, nothing will happen. No API will be cached, and nothing will be emitted on a stream. And here's the proof. So from one side, you have ngZone. It's a large class. I cannot fit it on my screen. But from the other side, you have no-op ngZone. 4 methods, 4 lines. It's that simple. Nothing is happening here, because no-op means, of course, no operations. That's the best description we have here. If you decide to do this, to provide no-op, you can remove Zone.js library and save a few kilobytes in the bundle. And that's always nice, because as an extreme Angular programmer, you have to think about optimizations. And I want to mention 2 of them. Of course, we have more. First one is bundle optimization. When you want to shrink your bundle, the result files of your build, because we need to send it from the server to client, and smaller files, less bytes to send, it will be shorter in time to do this. So you have faster load for user, and that's great. The runtime optimizations are the optimizations that we were taught on university. So how to make code run faster, how to write better algorithms, and so on. And you have to learn when to stop. If you decide to optimize forever and ever, it's madness. You have to learn when to stop. So for example, you can use Rail model. I believe it was a Google research. They checked how much time you can spend on some actions before your user abandoned the task. And that's fine. So make your app good enough and move on, as I'm going to move to dependency injection. This one is quite important. It's a big thing in Angular. It's about architecture, about making your app robust. And if you use, for every single service in your app, only provided in root, global service, I think there are 2 options. First one, your app is small, and it's OK. You don't need anything else, and that's great. But if you have a complex app, and every possible service is still provided in root, probably you are overcomplicating your code and architecture. So in Angular, we have 2 terms in dependency injection. We can provide something and inject something. When we provide, we set a scope for a service. we say it is visible here and not here. And when we inject something, we deliver the instance of the class to another object. So we will start with providing thing. In Angular, we have few scopes. We start with null. You cannot provide anything there. It's just a root of the tree. And I think that it's worth mentioning that it's there. The next one, platform, is quite interesting because apps in Angular run on a platform. So it means that you can run multiple apps on the same platform and have a provider which you can use to send data between apps. And that's really nice, but in the majority of our apps, we have only one app on the platform. So how can you use platform? It is starting before your app. So you can execute some code using Angular before your app starts. You can fetch translations, environment variables, authenticate. So later, when your app is running, you may assume that all of these actions were executed successfully, and it simplifies your code. You don't have to care about it. It should be provided. It should be done. It's a huge simplification. Another one is application service is available for the whole app, blah, 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 provided in root, boring. Lazy route. When you lazy load a module or a component, it will create a scope for that. So this service will be available for this lazy route and its children routes. It's not, I think, very useful. It's good to know that it's there and it will, create something like that. Next one is modules. So ng module decorator has providers fields, and you can provide something on a module. And this service will be available for the whole module and all of the connected modules via imports. It's problematic, so we'll be back to this pretty soon, because next one is the most useful one, directives/components. Component and directive decorators have that providers field as well. You can provide something on a component. It will be available for that component and its children, and it will create a new instance of the service for every component instance. So you can move some of your global state to the local state, and again, simplify your architecture. If you imagine that you have a list component, and you keep list items in a service, if you have it global and you have two lists, you have to manage that. When you have it local, you don't have to carry it. It's simple, right? So let's go back to that modules thing, complicated and stuff. And this one is one of the best questions for interviews. So you see nothing, but I'm asking people, if I have a root module and I'm importing two modules, one of them has a component, second service, can I use service to inside of component one? And a lot of people say, no, you cannot. It does not belong there, right? It belongs to child module 2. Unfortunately for us, we can use it because service 2 is available for the whole module and all of the modules connected via imports, no matter how they did this. You shouldn't do this because it's indirect dependency, it's bad. So maybe, consider not using that, even if it works. For injecting, you can use constructors, as we used to do, but in Angular 14, they introduced inject function. It's super cool. I'm going to speak about it tomorrow, so I will just show you a little sneak peek what I want to show you tomorrow. So I will show you how to create use HTTP resource function. You probably may assume what it does. It is so simple, just one line, really nice, and if you have a simple app, you don't have anything more. You don't need lifecycle hooks. You don't need constructors. It works. It's simple, and if you use inject, it's quite simple to write. So the next big thing in Angular is chain detection. If someone told you that understand it, that he or she understand it in every possible use case, in every possible border case, I would not trust that person. It's extremely complicated subject. And luckily for us, every time when we speak about chain detection, we speak about how to reduce number of chain detection cycles. Because if you can achieve the same result in smaller number of cycles, it means that the solution is more optimized. Same result, does work, that's great, right? So that's the main subject for chain detection you want to think about. And you can do a lot of things, but first you have to learn the basics of one. And these 5 articles are the best. It's old, like 5 years old, but there is no better resource for that. I'm sorry to say that it's just the best possible articles you can have. For example, if we go back to our case from ng-zones where we wanted to add a CS class, we can use render2 class. We can inject it and use it. And it's a class which will allow you to manipulate your styles. You can add class, remove class, styles, attributes, and so on. So instead of running the whole chain detection cycle, we can just add class. And it's fast, and it's nice. But it's not the best practice, so you should never think that, okay, I know render2, I'm going to use it in every possible case. So I checked it, and render2 is really great solution when you want to add one class or a bunch of them, but when you want to do a bulk change. The built-in style, that background, class, that something way is faster, because Angular is extremely great framework for bulk changes. So probably you want to learn about both of the ways. And again, luckily for us, there are more use cases for render2. Based on my experience, I've never had to, change all of the CSS classes in my app. It's insane. So in most cases, render2 is way to go. The another pattern you can use to reduce chain detection cycles is to reduce life cycle of your component, because it is a solution, not a feature. They invented that to, give you opportunity to do something when it's changing. So idea is simple. Instead of having input with a string or something else, you can have input with observable of string. Then you can pass the whole observable to your children, to components, and only components that are actually subscribing to that value will execute anything. So if you want to push a new value, you don't have to run a chain detection cycle. You just emit the value on a stream. It's that simple. If you use async pipe, everything will be done automatically. And it's about doing, of course, precise changes in small pieces of DOM, only when needed, and it sounds like signals, because it's a similar idea. You want to reduce a life cycle. You want to pass something that will not require running the whole chain detection cycle just to change one value, right? I told you a lot about styling methods, so you may wonder, maybe I should disable encapsulation. It's maybe not efficient or something. So emulated one, the default one is almost as fast as non-encapsulation at all, and it's the next thing you should probably learn as an extreme Angular developer. Angular has that ahead of time compiler, which means that we are able to do some things during the build. We will spend few seconds, few minutes more, but we won't have to execute the same code on client's computer. And we will save a lot of time because we build only once and run it multiple times. So emulated one is cheap. You can use it, but I would consider using non-encapsulation at all, even if it's cheap, okay? Because let's imagine that. You can encapsulate styles, right? And you have button, dropdown, and card. All of them have that active class. And you have a style for active things, right? And you have basically 3 classes named active. And you want to change your styles, so you have to fix it in 3 places. We have a lot better ways of doing CSS. We have BEM, we have object-oriented CSS. A lot of cool stuff we can use to solve the problem. Encapsulation, again, is not a solution. It is a solution, but it's not the best solution we can have. It's not even a good solution. So maybe you should consider using none and write your CSS like you should do. And the next thing, and I'm really sorry to say that, you have to learn how to write unit tests. And I hate unit testing in Angular. For many years, Angular was delivered with Karma. And Karma is problematic because it's extremely slow. Every time when you want to execute a unit test, it will open for you a browser and execute the test in browser. A lot of things may go wrong with that. It's slow. It will, destroy your memory and so on. So I hate it. But you can replace it with Jest. Jest works on Node.js. It is better, faster, and so on. But I was still unhappy with my tests. It was slow, and I had no idea why. So I assumed that maybe the problem is that Jest is a JavaScript runner, and I have TypeScript, and I need to transpile it. And Angular have that ahead-of-time compilation that is not fast at all. So maybe if I can replace it with something faster, I will be happy with my tests. So I did it. I replaced it with sbuild. It was 45 times faster than previously. Not seconds, times. Because sbuild is this new gen, next gen, blazing fast bundler. Unfortunately, testbed, the basic utility for unit testing in Angular, was not working. So a lot of people, when I showed this on the internet, said, go away. We want our testbed. You cannot write unit test without testbed. Go away, right? A few weeks later, I had another compiler based on sbuild that was able to build Angular in a way that testbed was working. That's nice, great. I solved the problem. No. So my tests with testbed were slow again. Even if there were no compilation at all, it was still slow. So I noticed maybe compilation step is not that bad. It's not the biggest thing here. I can solve it. So why testbed is so slow? And how slow it is? And I checked that in my third article. The blue line is the same test with testbed, and red line, the same test without testbed. I basically had the same test using two approaches. I was testing the same thing. And if you decide to go without testbed, it is faster. And I would suggest you to do this. Even if you check Angular docs right now, they are, let's say, suggesting this a little bit that maybe it's not a good idea to use testbed for everything. There are better ways. And if you don't know how to do this, you can use ChatGPT. Really, it's really great tool for unit tests. I was quite sure that it's not going to convert my testbed-based tests to something testbed-less, but I was scared when the test was converted and it worked, so I don't have to write unit tests anymore, I believe. So you can use ChatGPT for that. It's a really great tool for things like unit tests. Okay, it all sounds cool, right? All of the methods. There are more, of course, concepts how you can use Angular, but I have to warn you about two things. First one, extremely important. I want, if it's going to be the only thing you remember after my talk, share your knowledge. You don't want to be the only person in your team who understands all of the methods. If you are the only person in your team, you have to maintain it. And your colleagues are not learning anything. So they are not gaining knowledge, and you're not gaining knowledge because they will not share with you their secrets. Organize workshops, whatever, just share your knowledge. This is the most important soft skill as a developer you can have. Really. And the second warning, you may want to push too much. You may want to cross some lines. Use, for example, private APIs of Angular. It will work. You can do awesome things with that. But if they change something and you decide to upgrade, you're screwed. So you cannot upgrade. You won't get signals, inject function. New cool things that are coming and are coming every half a year. So just stick to the public API. It works. You can do awesome things with that as well. So to sum up, my top 3 important aspects to start your path as an extreme Angular developer. First one, focus on optimizations, so chain detection. NG zones, learn how to work without them, how to consume render too efficiently, and how to use chain detector ref. The second one is about architecture, about building robust solutions, so dependency injection. Learn that component directives provide us. It is so cool thing to have. It works a little bit like context from React. You can do a lot of things with that, really. Then learn platform providers if you have a use case for that. And maybe then you will notice that you can replace some of the built-in providers of Angular to achieve something you like that is more efficient. You can do this with Angular. And the last one is about your approach to the apps. So reactivity. Observable inputs and signals. It is a very similar idea. Signals will be built in and are built in Angular 16 right now. You can connect everything to a package called RX Angular. It is super cool. It's based on a huge research, so I would suggest just exploring that. It's a really cool way of using Angular. And I think that's all. We can go out and grab some beer. So thank you very much.